light in the sky, rising in the air. There's a feeling so strong. It's time to light the fire, like a bright shining light. Learn, getting more out of life. Love, sharing time with friends, feeling so strong.
Hello, welcome to the House of Wellness. Great to be with you. My name's Luke Darcy, and sitting alongside me, as always, is the beautiful Stanley and Luke Hines. Welcome, guys.
G'day, Darth.
Fair to say, this has been a unique period in our lives, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of fear, and I think we're aiming today in a balanced way to give you the best information we can, hopefully some solutions, some positivity, and I suppose being real about what has been a fairly tough time, Jo, for a lot of people.
Yeah, I would suggest that as we work our way through this global crisis of the coronavirus, that we're all facing something we've never faced before, and we're navigating it in a way that can be really frightening. I think it's okay to acknowledge that we are at times fearful. We don't know what's going to happen. The uncertainty can cause a lot of anxiousness.
Absolutely. There's so many different people living in our community. Now, I feel really fortunate that, I'm young, healthy, strong immunity, but I think about my mum who's in her 70s, living alone. She doesn't know whether she should stay at home isolated, protecting herself, but because she is alone, she still needs to go out and get the groceries, but there's nothing on shelves. So it's putting us in a really difficult position of what do we actually do right now.
And Heinz, we've seen the best and the worst of humanity in this time, haven't we? We've seen people fighting each other in supermarkets.
Horrific.
Hoarding, I suppose, and stockpiling, which is really not the answer at the moment.
Yeah.
The message is we produce more than enough food in Australia. We will not run out of food. 2/3 of our food supply we actually send overseas. We're not going to run out of toilet paper. We actually manufacture that here. So there's a bit of common sense and a bit of decency. Jo, which is why I'm really looking forward to chatting to you about an initiative that you have in your local community.
Well, I wouldn't call it an initiative.
It's amazing, Jo. It is amazing.
I mean, it was literally me sitting at home knowing that we're all going to be self-isolating, and my mum's on her own as well.
Yep.
She's in her 70s, and we, thinking to myself that we have a beautiful community, but I don't know everybody on my block. And so I thought, well, I would hate to think I'm sitting self-isolating and 4 doors up, there's someone self-isolating and that person needs a bit of help and I'm not aware of that. So all I did, an initiative, was that I just printed some flyers and I did a little letter drop. There were like a big block of our neighbourhood that there were about 100 residences. And I just said, I'm starting a WhatsApp group. Text me your phone number and I'll add you. And I had a couple of more senior members of the community who didn't know what WhatsApp was. I'm like, I'll come and sort you out. That's okay. They're adorable. And then, so then we've started this WhatsApp group and it's been amazing because not only has there been lots of talk about, I'm watching this on Netflix, everybody hook in, it's been great. But I have learned that there are members of my community who are more vulnerable. There's one particular couple at the end of our street, Helen, she's lovely. She is, she's immune suppressed.
Yep.
So she needs some extra help. She needs to be checked in on, I had a little message the other day my baby needs Panadol and I couldn't get it. Has anybody got in? And I'm like, I've got loads of Panadol. I'm coming around to put it on your doorstep.
I'm so glad you talk about things like immunity though, Jo, because a lot of people think their immunity is just inbuilt and we're going to be fine. But there's so many lifestyle factors that we can all do to improve our immunity, and it doesn't just come down to supplementation or what we eat. There's actually lifestyle factors, and later in the show I'm actually going to share that with you guys, so I can't wait.
And you've got a great passion for that, Heinz. You're looking forward to hearing your expertise on that. One of my favourite images so far has been the Italians' response to it, who have been isolated on their balconies, playing music to each other, dancing on the balconies, working out exercise routines. So in adversity, there's often great opportunity, Jo, and hopefully we can share some of that as well. We've got some great experts coming in as well. A story, Jo, that you've brought to the table.
Well, in and around understanding that there are people in your communities that are struggling with conditions that you might not even imagine, I'm bringing a beautiful story about a man who has a condition called anosmia. Do you know what that is?
I don't, Jo, but I believe anosmia is often an overlooked condition that deserves a bit more attention. We're going to give that, and it's fantastic to have access to one of our leading ear, nose and throat surgeons as well in this time of uncertainty. That and much more. Make sure you stick around. This is the House of Wellness.
I want my mum to live in your neighbourhood.
Yeah,
She's got to move into your block.
Welcome back. As the coronavirus is constantly evolving in real time, we're fortunate enough now to speak to Dr. Stephen Murillo, who's the Director of Intensive Care at Austin Health. And we know our health professionals, Joe, are incredibly busy at the moment. So Steve's been good enough to jump on the line. Hey, Steve, thanks for joining us on the House of Wellness. I suppose, just from your point of view, an update on where things sit, what we should be doing in the general public.
Yeah, thanks, Luke, for the opportunity to share where we're up to. As you might imagine, the healthcare system's gearing up for what we anticipate will be a real surge in activity. In intensive care, we're certainly ensuring that we've got all of our equipment ready and available. We're looking at all our staffing to ensure that we both look after our staff and have enough doctors, nurses and allied health professionals to care for potentially critically ill patients. And we're also reaching out across different hospitals and different departments to make sure that if we need to expand our capacity, that we're able to do so.
Stephen, we've seen so many images of people queuing out the front of hospitals to be tested. Is that a good idea, or should people try to alleviate the pressures on our hospitals and not go there?
I think a key message for the community is that if you're not unwell, you don't need to come to hospital. If you're worried, you can certainly contact your general practitioner. If you want to be swabbed and you need advice, then in most jurisdictions there'll be some advice from the local Department of Health as to who qualifies for a swab and to be tested. Those criteria will change over time, so people should seek the most up-to-date information on any given day. But a great first port of call is to contact your general practitioner if you're worried, and save hospitals for people who are feeling very sick indeed.
Steve, do we have enough test kits? Are we in any danger of running out?
So I work exclusively in intensive care. I don't have that knowledge as to how many kits we have available, but I'm certainly reliably assured by my colleagues in infectious diseases that they've planned for the correct number of testers will be required to keep on top of the situation.
And Steve, what are you seeing at the coalface in intensive care so far? Have you had some first-hand experience with coronavirus?
So thus far we've not seen any cases come through my intensive care unit, and I think that would be generally reflective of most intensive care units around the country so far. It feels a little bit like the calm before the storm in the ICU at the present time. We've been working very hard to ensure that all of our procedures are up to date, that our equipment's been checked, that we've ordered additional supplies, and we've got contingency plans to expand our capabilities as required. But we haven't actually managed people in my unit thus far, but we're certainly ready to do so at a moment's notice.
And Steve, we've seen a lot of talk around this notion of flattening the curve. Can you explain that for people who may not fully understand that?
Yes, certainly. So the system can cope with a large number of patients coming through in a business as usual mode. But if we have a massive influx of critically ill patients, then there is a potential that we could exceed the capacity of the system to cope with that number. Now, as I've mentioned before, we've been doing a lot of planning to expand our capacity so that we anticipate being able to meet a much greater demand than we ordinarily would expect. But what the community can do to help us is to spread the number of infections over time so that we don't have a huge peak that risks overwhelming our system. If we can treat all these patients over a period of weeks to months, rather than days to weeks, it would make a huge difference in outcomes for patients.
Steve, I'm still surrounded by people who tell me that it's just like the flu. I mean, flu claims a lot of lives each year. We'll get through this. It's actually not that big a deal. Can you explain the difference between this and a flu season?
Yes, certainly. So what you've just described, I think, would be probably a fairly typical experience for people who are otherwise young, fit and well. So children appear to be very little affected, which is wonderful. And young adults and even people in middle age, assuming that they've got good health, they have little to fear at a personal level from the virus. They will have something like a heavy cold or a flu-like illness. What's different is that there's a higher risk of critical illness in vulnerable populations, such as we mentioned before, particularly the elderly. And we have a lot of very precious older people in our midst. Everyone's got grandparents or parents or very special people in their lives. And we need to do what we can as a community to ensure that we don't allow transmission of the virus to those groups.
Very fluid situation, Steve. We know you've got an enormous amount on your plate. Reassuring to hear how prepared you and your colleagues are. Steve Murillo, the Director of the Intensive Care Unit at the Austin Health. Thank you so much for your time today.
Most welcome. Take care.
Welcome back to the House of Wellness. Certainly is a time of uncertainty. Reality is, Joe, that we are going to get through it at some stage. We're all in it together. But there are people more vulnerable in our community. We want to talk about an example of that.
Yes, absolutely. I think it's a great reminder at the moment to check in with people who might be living with something that is a little bit different or unusual and makes their lives a bit more challenging. For instance, many Australians are forced to cope with a partial or complete loss of smell. Have you thought of this?
I have not thought of this.
It's a condition called anosmia, and as I found out, it can have a profound effect on a person's quality of life.
People believe they taste with their taste buds, but in reality your taste buds only distinguish between bitter, sweet, salty and sour. The rest of the work is actually done by something, I think it's called the olfactory epithelium, which is the fleshy part just underneath your cheekbones.
For the past year, Michael has been unable to smell or taste a single thing. So you've still got your taste buds,
Yes.
which is why you then, when you eat, that's all you pick up.
I just pick up the bitter, the sweet, the salty or the sour.
Say that chocolate donut, I imagine that's very sweet.
I can try it if you like.
Okay.
There's a little bit of sweetness there. A little bit creamy with the chocolate, but other than that, it's pretty plain, pretty bland.
Last year, Michael underwent surgery for sinus cavity cancer, leaving him without a sense of smell or taste. We're surrounded by roses, the most beautiful smell. What does it feel like not to be able to smell them?
It feels a little isolating, you know. I feel like I'm not a part of, you know, my surroundings.
Right, so you're disconnected from what you're seeing.
A bit disconnected, that's right, yeah, a bit disconnected.
So can you remember what the smells were like?
Vaguely. It's amazing how quickly that memory disappears. There are things that I do remember the smell of, that I do miss. Things like when my kids were born, that baby smell, which it's
Nothing
intoxicating.
like it in
it's
the
beautiful,
world.
isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, and now I've got a couple of granddaughters and I don't get that same feeling or connection. As much as I love them, I miss, you know, when I hold them, that baby smell, you smell their hair.
Are there any smells you don't miss?
My teenage boy's bedroom.
That is a very specific smell. Michael used to love cooking up a storm for his family, but since being diagnosed with anosmia, he's lost his appetite.
So this is where the magic used to happen.
Because you loved cooking.
I loved cooking, yeah, but now I dread meal times. I get a couple of bites in half a sandwich and it becomes bitter and I just can't handle the taste. I've left things in the oven and not realised and gone to bed because, you know, I can't smell them burning. So, you know, all these sorts of things concern me and, you know, as a single dad, I've got to look out for my kids as well. I ask Caleb to smell me occasionally to make sure I don't smell bad. I don't know who gets more embarrassed, Caleb or me.
I think you do.
I think I do.
What would you like people to know about anosmia?
I guess I just want people to have a little more understanding because it is a frustrating condition to have. The anxiety levels, they're usually right up there most of the time. I do tend to worry about my surroundings because I can't smell smoke. I worry that I'm going to wake up in the middle of the night and the house is burning down. There's more to it than this invisible condition that no one can see. It's a lot more deep-rooted than that. But, you know, I hope one day I'm going to be able to wake up and just go, yeah, this is my life now. I can deal with this. Let's get on with it.
It was a really profound story for me. Michael explained how losing his ability to smell has affected his taste as well. And the other thing he said is that he has less memories because as he's going about his day, he doesn't have that smell that triggers, oh, that was that time when I smelt that beautiful, you know. Isn't that really sad?
Not something you think about, is it? But as you said, that's a pretty profound thing to have to deal with. Joining us now is leading ear, nose and throat surgeon, Dr. Matthew McGarry. Welcome to the House of Wellness. It's a unique time and this is obviously a specialty of yours. How many people are dealing with this affliction?
Well, it's an interesting condition and everyone at some point in their life has lost their sense of smell. You all remember having a bad cold, smell goes. So anosmia, temporary anosmia, is actually incredibly common. But for people like Michael who have lost their sense of smell permanently, then that's a smaller proportion, but still, you know, 1 or 2% out there in the community will have permanent anosmia.
Well, Doctor, what causes permanent anosmia? And is it true that you can regain your sense of smell after experiencing it?
It depends on the cause. So if you imagine inside the nose, there's an area right at the top, about the size or less than the size of a postage stamp on each side of the nose, where the nerve endings can detect smell.
Yep.
Now, either the smell can't get into that area of the nose or those nerves stop working. And they're two different reasons why you may not be able to smell. So depending on the underlying cause, you could get the smell back or it may be permanent.
Now, there's interesting to note that it could actually be a precursor or a bit of an early warning sign for things like Parkinson's disease or Alzheimer's disease. Should we be using anosmia as a bit of a signal?
So everyone, as they get older, loses their sense of smell to some degree. What we see is that people with Parkinson's or Alzheimer's, they tend to lose their sense of smell a little bit earlier and to a bigger extent. They have looked at screening programs to see whether we can get any warnings about that, but none of them have really given us enough information to say, if you're losing your sense of smell, panic, you've got a problem, so stay calm, everyone. It's a general part of ageing.
Why is it that smell and taste are linked?
That's a really good question. They are linked, but I like to spread it out into two different causes. So you've got taste, and Michael mentioned that taste is a very broad, rough sense. In addition to that, you've got flavour. And if you imagine that smell contributes to flavour, then that's why losing your smell will alter your taste. So you might be eating something sweet, but you don't know if it's raspberry or banana because you've lost the flavour, and that's what the smell contributes to.
Well, apparently I am told that women have a better sense of smell than men, which is supposedly...
Here we go, the competition begins.
No, it's supposed to mean that we choose the best mates. And it also allows us to bond with our newborns. That's what I'm told. And my husband smells lovely, so I would support that. But is that true? And how do men's and women's ability to smell differ?
Well, you're very lucky to have a nice smelling husband, firstly. So, but it is true, women's sense of smell is stronger than men's. So the reasons for that, you know, we might debate, but it is absolutely true. Women are better than men, I'll admit that.
Hey,
That's
Matthew,
what I was getting at, but well done.
I'm going to jump straight to what has been an incredible year, and in terms of medical health and world health. You're not an immunologist, but as a surgeon and a leading health professional, what do you make of the coronavirus? What do you make of our ability to respond? What are we learning out of this? Were the governments prepared enough? And how does it sit for you?
What we're learning is that we don't know. We're really puzzled at the moment as to what the most appropriate action and response should be. We're trying to gather all of the evidence we can, but there's still uncertainty about what the best response is. In my world, I deal a lot with cancer, and we know that cancer can't stop while the coronavirus is around. So we still need to treat people with cancer, but what we're trying to do is to just make sure that these people can still get treated in an efficient time frame while we're freeing up the less urgent conditions to make space for what could be quite an overwhelming impact on the health system.
So that obviously means too that we need to be careful that we are self-isolating so that then we're limiting the spread.
It does seem that self-isolation will limit the spread. How much that has an impact on the overall spread of the virus throughout the community, we still don't know. But the advice at this point is to be careful, to act with social distancing, and just make sure, particularly the elderly, the more vulnerable in the community, are taking extra precautions with those measures.
So, Matthew, I actually spent a full day at hospital. I had my 9-year-old Maxie cut his finger, and watching the amount of people come through that are presenting, and I've got no medical background at all, but the fear-driven, hey, I've got a headache, I'm concerned. Is there a message you can give people around who should be at the front of the queue potentially in our health system? Is there a common sense approach we can take to this?
Well, there's some really good advice on the Department of Health website, and I think that's where you're going to get the most up-to-date advice. So rather than trying to give anyone any information, which may well change by later today or by tomorrow, I think go to the website, go to the government websites, look for the advice there, and you'll find on those websites the most appropriate course of action.
Dr. Matthew McGarry. It's a famous surname. If you grew up in South Australia, the McGarry medal is equivalent to the Brownlow medal, Joe. So familiar with Matthew's family. Hey, we're going to take a break. Thanks, Matthew, for joining us today. We really appreciate it. Hinesy's going to share his expertise in building your immunity in this time of uncertainty. More on the House of Wellness right after this break.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Nice. Great knowledge.
Yeah, I'm impressed with you guys. One take.
Best thing you can do. Yeah, you are.
Welcome back to the House of Wellness Solution Focus. We are here on the couch today, and Hinesy, this is where you come into play. Protecting your immunity, looking after yourself is right to your forehand.
Well, welcome to my lab, Darcy and Joe. I'm ready to share some tips with you by now with everything COVID-19 and also heading into cold and flu season. We know we should be covering our mouth, coughing into our elbow and also washing our hands very thoroughly. But what else can we be doing? And that takes me to my 4 S's. And everyone at home can do this themselves. First things first is that when we are stressed, it sabotages a healthy immune function. So we need to be implementing stress-free activities, putting down the phone, doing yoga, and potentially, Darcy, something I want to pass on to you is colouring in. So could you grab that book there at the top?
Okay.
I want you to grab some coloured pencils and I want you to start colouring in. Now, the aim is for you to get in between the lines. I know you struggle with that. You want to keep it in between the lines.
I'm going to take that backhander on board, but it is a surprisingly relaxing.
Yes, it's a form of mindfulness.
Absolutely.
Now, I've got 3 more S's to get through, so keep the small talk to a minimum. Now, the next S is all about sleep. So skipping on sleep is the worst thing you can do for your immunity. So what you want to be doing is getting about 8 hours, but also celebrating and cultivating a healthy sleep routine. So getting into a pattern. Next, we, of course, have supplementation. 2 of the most popular that we should be talking about: vitamin C and vitamin D. Vitamin C has been used since the 1930s to not only manage but reduce the severity of viruses. And vitamin D, people lack vitamin D as we go into the colder months because we're not getting as much sunshine.
And if you're self-isolating, it's hard to get your rays.
So if you're not getting out as much, make sure you supplement with some vitamin D. And lastly, the fourth S is sustenance. And you help me with that one, because I was just going to call it food, and that's boring. So we'll call it sustenance. So it's 4 S's.
Yep.
And today I have whipped up my delicious citrus crusher. Now,
I love the look of this.
Because they say citrus is a great thing to protect your immunity, isn't it?
High in vitamin C, but we've also got garlic and ginger. Now, garlic and ginger are antimicrobial and antibacterial. They are so good for fending off viruses, colds and flus. So I've got to see what you guys think of this citrus crusher right here. Now, Joe, this is more of a chaser for you.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I've got you some garlic. Now, I don't want you to get unwell.
What do you want me to eat that
Yeah, I just want you to eat the raw garlic.
I'm not going to do that.
This is a chaser. That's for you.
I've got to sit next to you people.
And Darth, I want you to suck on a lime. I've been dying to say that to you my whole life.
Okay, mate.
I want you to do that. And I'm just going to have the citrus crusher.
No, I'm going to decline that.
Now, tell me what you think. Basically, this recipe is a bunch of citrus,
Yum.
apple cider vinegar, ginger, garlic, all blitzed up, not juiced, blitzed. So it's the whole fruit in there. What do you reckon?
I love it, and I'm happy to take the garlic this way. It's delicious. And I will say the fragrance of that is very uplifting. It's really rejuvenating, don't you think? And did you know this week it's International Fragrance Day?
Know that.
You are wealthy of knowledge.
Yeah, but I think if we are stuck at home, fragrances are a really great way to engage with your senses and maybe lift your home a little bit if you can burn a candle or get some citrus, some mint.
You know what? It is a perfect time to take up a hobby, and cooking might be one of those. Look after your health with real food, cook with these fantastic, really healing ingredients, and you will thank yourself later. You might be able to be a chef when you get out of isolation.
We haven't held back on the garlic in this one, Hinesy, but it is a good drop.
It's a good thing we're a metre apart, hey?
I'm happy to go over here, guys, just for the time being.
Hey, still to come, Hinesy proves you don't have to be cruel to be kind as he steers our good mate Gus Warren through his health and fitness challenge. Stick around. That is next on the House of Wellness.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
I wanted to know if you'd get into that garlic.
Mel has been getting her hair dyed ever since the first grey arrived, but she's up for the challenge to see if home hair colour really can compare. First is the fun part, pick a colour. The closer you go to your natural hair colour, the better the effect will be, and less likely that any greys will survive. For home dye newbies, barrier cream or Vaseline will be your best friend. A little applied around the hairline will stop any pigment staining the skin. Just make sure it doesn't touch those roots. With a twist of the wrist, section that hair into 4 equal parts. We're going to take it section by section. Mel's only got her roots to worry about, so the trick is let the roots process for 20 minutes before applying more colour to the rest of the hair. Mel's application is on par with the pros, but colour application is just the first step. To complete the look, you need to know about aftercare.
Stage 2 of our triple care colour routine is our new post-colour shampoo. This restores the pH level of our scalp, as well as gets any excess residue left on the scalp for once we've rinsed off the colour.
And after all that work, you get to relax, just like a salon.
The next part of our triple care colour routine is our nourishing mask. Now, everyone loves our nourishing mask.
And that's it. Beautiful, luscious looking locks in just 1, 2, 3. And not a grey hair in sight.
I'm not looking at me, it's Darth. It's garlicky.
Welcome back. We are in the midst of unprecedented times because of the coronavirus, and while we're all doing self-isolation doesn't mean we have to be alone, and we've seen some incredible scenes around the world, Hinesy, that makes you smile, really.
Exactly right, Darth and Joe. I tell you what, my favourite so far has been the rooftop workout in Spain. So a trainer essentially has created a platform on the top of a building which is surrounded by other units and apartments, and he's doing workouts that everyone can do along with him. And you see the footage of everyone in the windows actually going along. The star jumps, the burpees, the squats. Just makes you feel good inside, doesn't it?
Oh, I love that so much because it's obvious. We know that we have to exercise not just for our immunity and to stay strong with our physical health, but it's so important for our mental health. And I've really wondered about that. How am I going to remain exercising when I'm stuck in my house? So there are ways.
Yeah, there are ways. It's funny, you don't need a gym to work out. You can actually train outdoors and train with space around other people so that you're safe. And that's exactly what I do with our mate Gus, funnily enough. I love taking him to all different places to transform his health, but also keep his mental stability really, really positive. The thing with Gus is that he's been down this road before when it comes to a physical and mental transformation.
So he's lost big amounts of weight before.
Absolutely.
Got back to...
And what happens is, like with many people, is they put it back on because they get to a point and they go, oh, I did it. Great, that's the end. And old habits start slipping in. I've got my work cut out with me for Gus because I keep telling him this is a long-term approach. We need to be making sure that we look holistically at how we're going to implement this for the rest of your life. And I say, mate, it's going to be a walk in the park. And he's like, yeah, Jurassic Park. Maybe. But look, I'm really, really proud of him. Gus is just blowing me away every moment. And if it gets hard or emotional or stressful, he's just the type of soul that lightens you up with a one-liner. Take a look. Bush tracks like this, one of the best things you can do. What I love about them is because they're undulating and there's ups, there's downs, there's rocks to avoid. What you can do is you can get up, you can train your body in different ways and you can utilise the environment around you. Plus, it doesn't feel like exercise, does it?
No, that's right. It feels like you're going on a lovely walk.
Great thing about doing this type of movement is you can control how intense it is. So you might have an active recovery day, or you might do a day where you see stairs like this and you really give it, and you give it that energy. But right now, I want to probably take it to the next level and give you a little bit of a taste of Luke as a personal trainer.
Oh, sounds awesome.
All right, I want you to put your left foot in front. Fantastic. All right, so your back hand right there is your right hand. I want you to give me 10 right here. 10.
High-intensity workouts are such an important part of the process.
4. Push, Gus. Go. 5.
But the great news for Gus is that 80% of his transformation is going to be from the food he eats.
1. How's that feel?
Not good.
But good.
But good.
At the same time.
The hardest thing, though, is knowing what that should be. So we're going to navigate how to, I guess, order healthy, the things that we're going to be looking for on a menu.
Can I open this now?
Like. Open it up.
Okay.
Let's go shopping.
So I often think about a plate of food as prime real estate. So if you've got that plate and you've got all that space and it's real estate, Why would you waste it filling it with crap? You wouldn't build a really crappy house on an incredible block of land. So I want you to consider every plate of food that you've got an opportunity to build an incredible plate. So today, I'm going to let you order what you think is, you know, your healthiest option. I'm going to order my healthiest option.
And then you're going to pick mine apart, aren't you?
No, I might even eat some.
Okay.
Oh, how good is that? Check that out. Are you a bit jealous?
Oh, I'm a little bit. Is that the sweet potato
That's the
thing
sweet potato hummus.
I did think about that.
Mate, what's that?
This is like a garden salad that has like coleslaw through it with a really yummy oil and that sort of stuff, which I thought would be great.
Yep.
One piece of gluten-free bread.
Now, I want to talk to you quickly about bread.
Okay.
Obviously, we don't want to demonise any food groups, but what I would say when it comes to bread or carbohydrates is we want to use them for a reason. So we've just trained, therefore you want to use them as recovery and refuel. But if we were sitting at home, sedentary, with no need to move or recover, I would say let's swap out the bread and increase your greens. So I've done like sautéed green veggies, healthy gut. So I've done sauerkraut, we've matched on that. Mate, high five on that regard. Avocado, good healthy fats. And I take your free-range bacon and I raise you one free-range crispy pork belly.
Oh, see, I think pork belly and I think you can't eat pork belly, that's going to be too fattening, no?
Mate, good quality, healthy fats from happy, healthy animals that have eaten a diet that they're supposed to eat.
I don't think that animal's very happy now. Anyway, I've gone the bacon, you've gone no bacon, so you've gone the pork.
Yep. Good quality, healthy fats keep us feeling fuller for longer. So if I have a piece of pork belly or bacon, I'm not going to feel hungry in 2-3 hours and want to reach for a croissant or a muffin. I'm going to feel full and I'm going to make it to the next meal.
Okay.
Should we dig in?
Yeah, what do you reckon out of 10? Give us marks out of 10.
Oh, mate, I'm going to have to taste it first, but I reckon... I reckon definitely a 10 out of 10 because everything here is a really smart choice that's going to lead you to the results that you want.
For me, it's very much an emotional journey. I know the physical thing has started and I know that I'm losing weight and I feel it in my clothes, but I've been here before. I think the difference this time is the fact that I've got such a good support network around me, the fact that I've got Luke, I've got my missus who's completely on course with me, plus I've got my mates as well. So I can't really turn anywhere without disappointing someone if I end up not doing a good job here or if I don't stick with it, I don't lose the weight, I don't get healthier. So I think that for me is really important because I do like to make sure that I don't let people down. But of course, it always comes down to what I do when people aren't watching. Just got to keep having the discipline, but so far so good.
I love you, mate.
Love you too.
Let's do this.
That man is just absolutely full of joy and love.
He's obviously working so hard. It breaks my heart when he says, I don't want to let other people down, because it's not about other people, is it?
It can't be about other people, but as much as you're doing it for yourself, you need to surround yourself with a community that has your back. They say you're most like the people you surround yourself with, those 5 close people. He needs to surround himself with 5 people who have got his back and keep him accountable. Now, something that does keep people accountable is a really good post-workout brekkie. Now, you saw what we cooked up there.
Looked
that
delicious.
was absolutely amazing.
I must admit, I'm a little bit confronted by the pork belly and the bacon, mate, as a health food option. But...
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So there's different types of meat out there, and if you're choosing meat from well-sourced animals that are ethical and raised on a diet that they're designed to eat, and it's organic, they're the choices we should be making if you choose to eat animal protein. Otherwise, avoid any of that processed stuff, that farm stuff, antibiotics. Avoid that like a plague.
And if I'm not eating animal protein anymore, what do I eat?
You need to be supplementing with fantastic things like hemp seeds and mushrooms and beans and pulses to make up that protein in your diet and iron and fibre and all of that type of stuff.
Yep.
Now, speaking of delicious food, one way I love to finish bacon-free a workout is actually with my man GQ, and it is a peanut butter breakfast bowl. It is absolutely delicious. Take a look. Gerald, as you know, I love staying active, and one of my favourite times to work out is actually in the morning. Making this smoothie bowl, one of the most incredible recipes that you can have as either pre or post-workout nutrition.
Being time poor in the mornings is fairly common, Heinzie. It's an easy meal to push to one side if you're in a hurry, and that's why I'm fascinated to see how your recipe is going to turn out.
Well, I tell you what, one of the reasons I love this recipe in particular is the bananas. Basically, the B vitamins in bananas help us turn the carbs into energy, which is perfect.
And perfect for your workout. But remember, bananas are rich in magnesium, so it's going to be great for your muscles, Heinzie.
So I know we go on and on about magnesium all the time, but there's something that we don't often touch on, and that's the combination of magnesium and HMB. Can you tell me more?
Sure. Hydroxymethyl-butyric acid, a long name, but actually it's in our bodies, Heinzie, and it's really important. It has some great functions. It helps improve muscle strength. It helps improve muscle mass. It reduces the risk of muscle loss. It actually helps reduce body fat. And more importantly, it's great for recovery.
Well, mate, I want you to hold that thought because I need to blitz this up and I'm going to come back to that. GQ, I got to say, this is looking absolutely perfect. What you want is for it to be thick, chocolatey. Now, the banana, the magnesium, what a perfect combination. That's obviously going to support my muscles because clearly I train a lot, and it's also ideal for the older generation.
Heinzie, just ease up, because we do exercise as well. But remember that HMB in supplement form actually gives us energy and more efficiency in our muscle function. So whether our muscles are working, recovering or resting, HMB with magnesium, a magnificent combination.
I've got to say, mate, I'm loving the sound of this. Magnesium and HMB looking after my healthy muscle function, with this here smoothie bowl looking after my taste buds.
And I can't wait to dig in.
The A to Z of Vitamins is brought to you by New Ethical Nutrients Mega Magnesium Muscle Plus. Triple action support for healthy muscles.
Check my phone, which is an awful habit. You know, it's just a millennial thing, I guess. Best part of the day is probably going to sleep. I love sleep so much. Probably salmon. That's probably why it's one of my favourite foods, just because I like cooking it. I love salmon. We'll go back to childhood sort of idol in Matthew Richardson. I'm sure Luke Darcy was hoping I'd say him, but, you know, not to be. Box squats. I feel like it's an unassuming one. I sort of look like I shouldn't be very good at them, and I am good at them, and I only really like things that I'm good at. So let's say box squats. Probably failure, as grim as that is. I hate to say that I used to own them, and I would never be seen in them dead now, but Crocs. They are definitely one for the bin. Annoying is probably the best word that describes me. I'm a little angry ant or a little annoying pest that, you know, annoys everyone at the footy club and loves affection and loves getting in everyone's face.
Let's go. She's a star, Lily, 22 years of age, and at about 14 or 15, she was the best player in the greater Geelong region, boy or girl. She had the boys covered, used to smash them, and so good now that the pathway's there for her to live her career. A bit disappointed she tried.
I was going to say, mate, you're saying such nice things considering you tipped at the post.
Well, I respect her honesty.
Yeah, let's be honest, everyone loves Richo. Even I love Richo.
You love Richo.
Hard to go past that. Hey, interesting time in the world of sport, though, guys, with remarkable time in the world, but I suppose my passion for sport, and we've seen events like the US Masters at Augusta, that famous tournament that has never been delayed, worked its way through world wars, that has been postponed and may not happen this year. The Tokyo Olympics looming, will that be cancelled? I mean, we're talking about stuff being postponed or cancelled that, aside from world wars, has never happened before. It's challenging times.
It really is, and for those of us who love our football or NRL or whatever it might be, particularly when you're going into the winter months, footy is the thing that keeps you going, for me, definitely. It's a real shame, and it's going to hurt a lot of people not to be able to go and see their team.
Especially with that mental health aspect of it as well.
Yes.
We're locked down, there may be nothing to watch that really makes us feel good inside. It's a form of therapy for so many people.
The AFL, the code that I love, I think have taken a really interesting stance around reducing their season, and they've said we are going to get this year away, whether we play a grand final before Christmas Day, which is amazing, whether we play 4 games in a week. They're trying to be creative to try and salvage the year, because the financial reality is if they don't get these seasons away, the future of these codes are uncertain. That's how dramatic it is.
It just takes one player to have been in that team and that team to have interacted with another team before it's a domino effect. And it just spreads far and wide. So at what point are they going to have to call it?
We're also talking about some of the fittest people in our community who've got great immunity, and some of the early stories that we've got is that they're recovering particularly well. It's a rolling, evolving discussion, all of this, and people are making it up. Our leaders are making it up as they go. Our sports codes and are in positions they haven't been in before. So it's fascinating on that front. As you said, I mean, for people to get the outlet, to sit down, to barrack for their team, it's such a big part of life in the community. So I'm really proud of the players who are desperate to try and get out there and put on the show.
Yeah, well, I think it is a time again, and I keep going back to it, it's a time for compassion and kindness and for connecting however you can. My favourite hashtag at the moment is apart but together, because we are being forced to be more apart than usual, but let's do it together. And thank goodness for the internet that we can do these things virtually. And I'm considering maybe having like a virtual footy get together. I might replay the 2010 grand final.
I think on that note, that's enough for today, Jay. You can sit in isolation and do that all on your own if you like. I'm not going to be joining.
I'll be there. I'll be there.
Oh, nice. Thanks.
Well, that is
virtually there
for today. For more information on anything from our show, please head to our website, houseofwellness.com.au. Remember to tune into the House of Wellness radio show with Joe Stanley every Sunday. Thanks, as always, to our good friends at Chemist Warehouse. We'll see you next time on the House of Wellness.
So what game would you replay? Yeah.
Some of my highlights, maybe.
Yeah.